Hey guys, it's Sarah Oliveira, and today we're going to be learning about human cells. Now let's pretend this is a human cell, which is, in fact, a lot like a city, which is what we're going to be learning today. Before we begin, let's start off by comparing the eukaryotic cell and the prokaryotic cell. Which one do you think we classify as? That's right, humans have eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotes, not us, have no nucleus, keep their DNA in the nucleoid, have no membrane, and are way more simple. But eukaryotes, like us and other animals, have larger and more complex cells. We keep our organelles in the membrane. Now, get ready, because we're about to go on a trip inside the human cell. So we made it to the selectively permeable bilayer phospholipid membrane. Try saying that 10 times fast. Which is like the gatekeeper at city limits. Gatekeepers control who goes in and out of the city. However, the door to get in is quite small, so how easily people and things can enter this city depends on their size. Imagine there's a large crowd waiting to enter. Smaller and more hydrophobic objects and people, such as oxygen, get in with ease, to get out of the high population on the outside and into the lower population on the inside. The larger and the more hydrophilic objects, trucks, people, such as amino acids in the cell, have to cross the city limit using energy, or ATP, because it's harder for them to get in. So they use transport proteins, which in this city is like a few of the more flexible gatekeepers who are like, "Hey sugar," because sugars don't cross easily in the cell. "I don't care if you're too large or too hydrophilic to get in the city through the main gate, just run through my protein door real quick." Then there's also some other doors called aquaporins, which basically let the water get into the cell or the city more easily. And now we made it into the city, or cell. But how do we get around in here? Well, that's what the endomembrane system is for. It regulates protein traffic and has quite a few different functions in the cell. The endomembrane system is made up of 6 parts. The first one is the endoplasmic reticulum, which is like highways, roads, and subway systems of the city. And it's made of tube-like passages where the proteins from the ribosomes can be moved in a cell, just like how roads let movement occur throughout the city. Now there's a rough endoplasmic reticulum, which has ribosomes attached. Ribosomes make proteins, which are also the building blocks of the cell. So the ribosome is like a construction company that builds the building blocks, which are proteins of the city. The rough ER also happens to make membranes for the cell, so it works as both a factory to create the city gates and also the building blocks of the city. Meanwhile, still functioning as a means of transportation and subway routes throughout the city. The smooth ER does not have ribosomes, also known as construction companies, but both of the smooth and the rough ER work as the roads, subways, and highways because they both transport materials throughout the cell. Another part of the endomembrane system is the Golgi apparatus, and it works as like the FedEx company of the cell. It takes in and sometimes modifies the products that the ER factory makes, and it sorts and packages the materials into the transport vesicles, which are the FedEx trucks. It has a sys side, which receives the factory products, and a trans side, which ships the factory products. And then there's also lysosomes, which have digestive enzymes that break stuff down. So it's like the recycle and waste centers that break down waste products of the cell and of the city. The nuclear envelope is the membrane in the cell that encloses the nucleus. So in a city, it's like the fence that goes around the city hall, which can be considered the nucleus. It is similar to the plasma cell membrane at the entrance of the cell or city because both of them controls what enters and what exits the cell, and both are part of the endomembrane system of regulating cell traffic. Small vacuoles also exist in human cell, which is very similar to our beautiful Mystic River because both store water, nutrients, and waste. And then that's the end of the endomembrane system. Now cells have another very important means of transportation and infrastructure, and it's called the cytoskeleton. The cytoskeleton is similar to a city's transport system because it helps organize the cell's structure and activities. and it has like monorails for vesicles to travel on. The vesicles are like the train cars that go on the rails of the cytoskeleton because it's what transports materials to and fro. The cytoskeleton also provides for the infrastructure system in the way that every city needs a framework that allows for movement and transportation, because then, everything knows what it's doing and where it's going. And our next stop is power plants. Every city needs something to give it power, electricity, for the city to even be able to function, right? Well, that power plant in a human cell is called mitochondria. It gives the cell energy by transforming sugars into energy, just like how a city's power plants turn fuel into electricity or energy. Now let's move on to inside City Hall, where there are very different sections, compartments, offices where the copy machines are so they can replicate the important documents. Well, these important documents of a cell are called DNA, and they stay inside the city planning office compartment of the City Hall, which is called the nucleolus. That's where DNA is stored, protected, and copied. And of course, as we described earlier, the beautiful City Hall is enclosed by a nice fence called the nuclear envelope. Okay, so Medford and these cities we've been traveling to are getting a little boring. So how about we go somewhere really cool? What about Venice, Italy? In Venice, waters flow through the city outside of the area of the City Hall and within the city wall. In a cell, this would be the cytoplasm, which is the jelly-like substance between the nucleus within the cell membrane that helps organelles move to and fro inside the cell. The waters via the water buses, the boats, and the gondolas of Venice help maneuver transportation throughout the city, which is why it's just like the cytoplasm that maneuvers the transportation of organelles. Except, of course, cytoplasm unfortunately has no legitimate gondolas for organelles to travel on their romantic honeymoons. And we made it. We traveled through the city, and we traveled through the cell. Let us not forget, though, that the best part of a city is how it interacts with the cities around it. Cells have awesome extracellular components and connections that help coordinate the activities in the cells. In our human cells, we can thank our extracellular matrix, which we can call the ECM. Now, let's break it down. Not that kind of breaking it down. So, matrix means that it's a surrounding medium or structure. Extracellular means that it's outside of the cell. So when you put them together, you got a surrounding medium outside of the cell that does all kinds of things like support, adhesion, which is connecting the cells to each other, movement outside the cell, and regulating activities. The ECM is how neighboring cells or cities connect, interact, and communicate. So you and me are part of a city, right? So it is our job to be like the ECM and connect with our neighboring cities around us so that we can all work together as a team in the human body or in our world. Cells need each other to function, and they rely on cells around them in order to live in a healthy body. And we are just like that. The world we live in order to function, has to have cities that connect, communicate, and interact with each other. So, citizens of Medford, let's act like organelles, each of us doing our part so we can work out as a whole and connect to the cities and the outside world that's around us.